What's up, YouTube fam? Long time no see. So I've been getting a lot of questions recently. Bridget, my violin sounds crappy. All of a sudden, just out of nowhere, it sounds crappy. What's going on? And the thing is, it could be a lot of things. Like, a lot of things. So today, I'm covering the top 5 reasons why your violin and my violin sounds crappy. What's going on? And what to do about it. Number 1, you gotta be honest with yourself. Have you been practicing? That might be the first thing you gotta look at. If you went away for a week on vacation and you had this piece in the bag, you're like, yo, I got this is amazing. And then you suddenly come back and suddenly this. What happened? You just didn't practice. And the thing is, that's alright. This is the most easily fixable problem. If you do not practice, you will either stay the same level or just get worse, depending on how long you've been playing for. If you were here, but now you're down here, is keep on practicing and you'll get back up to here. I know this from experience. I would go away for a week or two in the summer, not practice, not bring my violin, and I'd come back. It's like I know nothing. Guys, my mom's gonna be so mad. So again, first thing, get back to that music stand and practice, and you'll be back to normal in no time. So as some of you know, the violin is a very, very high maintenance instrument, and a lot can go wrong. That's why the next 4 reasons of why your violin sounds crappy all of a sudden is because of this guy. So let's dive on in with number 2, strings. First of all, silly question. Are your strings the right size for your violin? I used to work at a luthier shop, a place that repairs and sells violins, and we had some people coming in with 3/4 strings on full-size violins. So as you can imagine, the strings were stretched out and they were barely fitting on the violin. They would unravel all the time. It wasn't a good time. So make sure, first and foremost, that your strings fit your violin. The number 1 reason why your strings might suddenly sound bad, they're just old. You gotta retire those guys. Now, it depends on how much you practice. I'd say for professionals, you should change your strings, every 4 to 6 months. But I've seen people who change their strings like once a month, and that's like really going hard, practicing 8 hours a day. So if you are a professional, you will have to change your strings a bit more often. For people who are going a bit lighter on the violin, who are maybe hobbyists, maybe beginners, or just lighter players in general, I'd say, 6 months to a year should be good. Just recently, I had to ask myself the question, why does my violin sound crappy? Because I'd been practicing quite regularly, performing, but I really had to dig in with my bow to make any kind of good sound, like good booming sound. And my wrist was getting sore, my arm was getting tired, and I was like, what's going on? Of course, I hadn't changed my strings in a year. So other than the amount of months it's been since you last changed your strings, some good signs to know when you should change them are, again, you have to dig harder to get a good sound. Maybe your strings are unraveling. You have winding on most strings, and little bits and pieces are just starting to come off. Maybe it's wearing away here where you put your fingers down the fingerboard especially. So if you experience anything like that, just take it into your local violin shop and they'll be able to get you a brand spanking new pair of strings and you'll be good to go. Number 3, bow hair. If your bow hair is old, it's going to sound really wispy and you're going to have trouble tightening it. You'll need to keep on tightening it and you just won't get the same tension. And same as strings, you should be changing your bow hair every 4 to 6 months for professionals or people who go really hard. And for beginners and hobbyists, I'd say every 6 months to a year. But it depends on the bow. So signs to look for bow-wise, the hair will be quite dirty near the frog. And you might look and see that there's more hair on one side than the other. You usually see more hair loss on the right side. And a good tip that I learned from working in the violin shop is that you never want to pull the hair out. Like a hair will break and it's flying everywhere. Don't pull it out, cut it, bite it off, do anything. Don't pull it out, because the hair is actually put in a knot at the top and the bottom. It's not just random hairs flying everywhere. It's actually like a ponytail of hair knotted on both sides. And if you pull it out, it will start to loosen the whole entire knot so that more hairs will come out more easily and the actual bow will start to like unravel from the top and the bottom. Nail clippers and teeth are your friends. Use them. So again, go to the violin shop, have them redo your bow hair, and it will sound and feel so much better, guys. It's amazing what it can do. I just had my practice bow rehaired. It's the one that I really go hard on. You know, I bring to weddings, bar mitzvahs, busking, everything. And I'm just dumb, and I didn't rehair it for like 8 months. And it was the one I was going like go hard or go home with. There were stray hairs flying on both ends, and it was crazy, and I just was so busy and didn't want to spend $75 to $100 just yet. But you gotta do it. You gotta do it because it sounds so much better. It saves your wrist, it saves your elbow, your arm, everything that you're using. Just do it, and again, you'll see how amazing it is, I promise you. Number 4, rosin. So you can't play a violin just on its own. You need a bow, and you can't play a bow on its own with no rosin. What is rosin? Rosin is the combination of linseed oil and tree sap that you kind of run your bow across to make it sticky. Otherwise, you would not get any sound. So when you run your bow across the rosin, it really builds up the stickiness level that you have. Not enough rosin on the bow, and your playing will sound very airy and thin and whispery. But the thing is, too much rosin, and it's gonna sound crunchy and awful and gross. It might take a bit to find out personally what style of rosin and how much rosin is right for you. If you're playing lighter and a bit more airy, you will want a bit less rosin and the rosin color to be a bit lighter, almost caramel colored. You will want to eat it, but don't. It tastes like tree sap and ick. Ugh. But if you're playing heavier and really need to dig into the string or play viola or cello, then you will need a darker rosin. That kind of looks like this. And if you don't know what rosin is right for you, that's all right. Talk about it with your teacher or bring your violin to the shop and they'll be able to help you out. So here we are, finally at number 5, weather. So in the first few centuries of the violin being a thing over in Europe, it didn't have any problems with extreme weather fluctuations. Everything more or less stayed the same, you know, maybe some mild winters, mild summers, but nothing too crazy like we got in Canada. So once the violin made its way on over to North America, they ran into a problem. See, a violin's made out of wood, and wood expands and contracts as the weather permits. So if you have a hot, muggy day, the violin is going to expand a bit. And if you have a dry, cold September day, the violin is going to contract, just get smaller. Now that would be all fine and good, but if you have looked at a violin, it's not all wood, and it's put together by glue. If there were nails and bolts in the violin, it would just explode. One of the lesser known things about the heat and cold fluctuations is that it can actually make cracks in your violin. One of the easiest ways to prevent your violin from cracking is to use a humidifier. Now, some cases come with a built-in humidifier, or you can just pop one in the case. It's really easy. It's pretty cheap as well. Or you can put in a humidifier directly inside your violin. It usually looks like a tube or, you know, a snake. But the one place where the violin splits open and cracks the most is actually near your chin rest. Now, because of these temperature fluctuations I told you about, the violin is bigger in the summer, but then, you know, you go into winter and the chin rest is clamped on top of your violin, and sometimes it will just move around because the violin is a bit smaller and it will seem loose. So you take the handy tool known as your chin rest key and you start to tighten it. But not many people remember to loosen it when the violin expands again. So suddenly you have this violin that's trying to expand again back to its normal size, and it just can't go anywhere because this metal is just clamped too tightly around it. And again, boom, it cracks or a seam opens up. And depending on the crack or the severity of it, that might cost you some big bucks. So just to recap for number 5 on weather, when it's cold, the violin shrinks, and when it's hot, the violin expands. So just make sure that you're taking care of your violin in both the hot and the cold weather, especially if you live in Canada, where it goes from -40 to +40 in the summer. And never leave your violin in the car on a hot day or a cold day. So pretty much a rule of thumb is don't leave your violin in a place where you wouldn't put a baby, because they're pretty much the same. That's it, that's all. Those are my top 5 reasons why your violin might suddenly sound really crappy. And if your violin sounds amazing, like all the time because you know all these things and you've done them, perfect. I take it in twice a year just to make sure everything's up and running if you don't do that already. And if you like this silly but hopefully informative video, let me know because I will have no idea. But let me know if you want to see more stuff like this, and you can do that by liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, insta-farting, face tweeting, YouTube-zing, all that stuff. And if you check out that dooley-doo, you can see my face tweets, insta-farts, website, a few more fun videos. And I hope you guys have a great day. And as always, keep practicing and have fun. Bye-bye.